So I like to ask people in that regard, when God looks at you, what's the expression on his face? You know, is he disappointed? Is he angry? Is he bored? I mean, what's the expression on his face? And what justification says in the impurity is he is grinning from ear to ear.
Delight.
He's absolute delight. Because when he looks at his son, we find that he rips the heavens in two and virtually shouts, "This is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased." And you and I live in the rainforest of the incessant delight of God's love for his son dripping down on us moment by moment.
Yes.
And so that's the starting place, is to know there is nothing that can separate us from the love of Christ. And this, I think, is a really important issue. And that's why one of the things I talk about in this book is that the first thing he does is give us a vigorous assurance of salvation, not a tentative one. Because too often in the church, what's happened is we're so afraid that people will abuse grace that we pull the reins back to make sure that doesn't happen. And so basically what happens is people trust Christ and they're told, yes, you are saved as long as you don't go this far out, you know, commit this many sins.
Right.
Or, yes, you're saved as long as you live this certain kind of life, but if you don't live it, it demonstrates you probably were never saved in the first place. Scripture does not do that.
No.
God takes the risk and he says, no, number one thing I want you to know is eternity is squared away. Eternity is squared away. You will spend all of eternity in a place where there's no more tears, no more sorrow, no more crying. You and I will feast on one another. That is a done deal. I don't want you ever worrying about it again.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be kind of like if my son came up to me and after he had done something really bad and said, "Dad, could I keep being in Edwards?" And I would say, well, that was never an issue.
Never an issue.
So the starting place is, as I said, this vigorous assurance of salvation. And you find this in Romans in particular, where Paul says, "For where sin did abound, grace did abound much more." In other words, grace plus one cancels out all sin. Now, the natural thought is, well, gosh, if that's the case, maybe I should just sin all that I want and let grace go, even further. And he anticipates that question in Romans 6:1. He says, "What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin, wallow in sin that grace may abound?" And his answer is basically this: no, but I can see why you would ask that question, given what I just said about grace. My concern is nobody's asking that question today. Very few. Very few are asking the question. You mean I'm really free to live any way I want? We're so hemming people in. We're so trying to keep them in check and to not dishonor the Lord. And part of that is a good motive. But we've taken away the very thing that takes their breath away.
Yes.
That absolutely stuns them to walk into a world and say, I cannot believe that I belong to this kind of God. You need to know about him.